Welcome to our Free Speech Zone, where we do a deep dive into trauma and reintegration. This is Combat Citizen. Welcome back to the Combat Citizen Trauma and Reintegration Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Stanton, and we'll be doing a deep dive into your trauma and reintegration. I just want to say welcome back. Welcome, and thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you supporting the podcast. It is definitely something that is definitely needed for being able to get across to other veterans, things that we're all experiencing, stories, things like that. So thank you for that. Thank you for the likes and the subscribe. So just make sure if you are listening on the platforms that you're on, make sure to like and subscribe, and then also share, get it out there to anybody out there that could benefit from the stories. So as I did last episode, I did a single episode. Sorry, I was trying something new in lieu of interviews. Still going to do the interviews, but thought I'd come out there and be like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to talk about a topic. So thought about a couple of different things and figured I'd start with a couple a different format for today. Just wanted to start with current affairs. So I know it's kind of a interesting time lately, but it's not current affairs.
What do you mean?
Oh, life is shit right now. I'm just kidding. No, it's not. No, life is good. Life is good, but there's definitely a lot of things out there that I think a lot of us are experiencing. And I was talking with a friend of mine the other day about the podcast and about what it could benefit to people and who you're reaching, what audience you're reaching out to and that kind of thing. And it got me thinking kind of a little bit beyond, maybe a little bit beyond the scope of veterans, but just a generalized, things that we all go through. So with that being said, I was actually thinking of this morning. So there's a small little situation that happened this morning while driving over to record my podcast, and rather interesting. And I don't know if anybody else experiences. Actually, you know what? I think everybody experiences things like this. So, in Andy's shaking his head like yes, So, driving over here, and it's a little foggy, and there is a gentleman in front of me, and he's driving 15 miles under the speed limit. And granted, I'm in my business truck, and I'm literally having the conversation in my head of, okay, what am I going to do? Should I hold back? Should I jump in front of this guy? Should I, what should I do? Like, what am I thinking what I should do? So instead of doing anything, I just kind of held back, just let him drive 15 miles in a speed limit, mind you. And, okay, so it's foggy. He's obviously probably, maybe he's not a very good driver. I don't know what's going on. Like, he's a very cautious driver or something. So we drive, eventually we get up to an intersection. It's off of, so we can turn on to 34, and I position myself to go and get into the left lane so I can take a left turn. Well, he hesitates, stops, looks over at me, and he has his cell phone in his hand, and he's I guess he's using a speakerphone or something and talking, and I'm like motioning for this guy to come in, like, hey, you know what, you can go ahead of me, because obviously I jumped the gun and he decided not to, and he's looking at me and I'm like, okay, so I decided to go ahead. The thought that I had on that was, you're driving 15 miles out of the speed limit, and you have your cell phone, and you're distracted. And I'm like thinking to myself, I need to get over to where I'm going. Anyways, so if anybody else deals with things like that, I'm sure everybody does. That's a situation in which I was like, what the fuck? So, yeah. It was definitely something that was anger creating. But for me, I'm like, okay, and I'm sure a lot of people have these conversations in their head is, should I do something? And what should I do? And I was talking to Annie about this. Is like, I literally go through it going, you know what? If I do something, what's the next step? Right? Like,
Sorry, I gotta ask, did he have any
yeah,
bumper stickers on his car?
no, well, no.
That's a shame. You can learn a lot about a person from their bumper stickers.
Oh, I love looking at bumper stickers on cars because I'm like, who are you voting for? Or you know, what do you support or whatever else? It's definitely makes for interesting conversation.
The other day, I mean, seriously, I was rolling down the road here in our little podunk town,
Yeah.
driving past Napa, and there's a big dually truck that obviously looks like it's a farm truck, and it was covered in stickers from, shall I say, those who lost in 2016. And I'm not joking. As I drove by, I couldn't help myself. I had to look and see who was driving this thing. I was just like, what?
It's a big ass truck. Wow.
And got used.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's dirty. It's got hay on it.
So it's obviously, you know,
right.
Yeah.
Who's voting that way that's agricultural?
I don't.
First of all,
I wouldn't think there would be anybody.
Exactly. But you know,
yeah.
Listen, everybody's entitled to their opinions. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no, it totally.
Just, that's a little out of the demographic range.
It's just perception, right?
Right.
It's just what you think is supposed to be, and then it doesn't happen. So, yeah. So yeah, I figured I'd kind of put in a little snippet of experience. And because you know, I'm sure we all experience stuff like that. So, all right.
I wouldn't exactly call it road rage, but road curiosity.
Yeah, road curiosity. Because if it was road rage, I'd be going around the guy. I'd be flipping him off, and then I'd be like, "Fuck! I have my business wrap on my truck. Now I need to go really super fast." And then it goes into speeding, and then you're like, "Fuck! I'm waiting for like a cop, and I'm looking all around. I'm like, you know what? No, I'm. Oh, here's another thought process. So when somebody pisses you off, or somebody like really, you could literally get into a fight with them. Do you like, what is the conversation in your head before something possibly could happen? The conversation in my head is going, you know what? If I punch this guy, I'm probably going to go to jail.
My conversation in my head usually starts with, what in the real and actual fuck?
Right. Well, there's that first. And then you're like, oh, we were talking about this earlier, is first reactions. Don't ever go off of first reactions on a lot of people, especially I'm going to say it, like a lot of veterans. Okay. Because a lot of veterans, I'm sure, probably have a lot of conversation in their head of things that they want to do to people, like veterans to civilians. Just saying.
I don't blame them, by the way.
No, we I remember roundabouts. Roundabouts are fun, but they're retarded. I love roundabouts. Just let you know, okay? Found roundabouts in Colorado. Got lost in the city. Had to call a friend. Had to phone a friend to be able to get back. Figure out where the fuck I was. And then I learned I liked roundabouts because you can get around pretty good, right? In Afghanistan, driving in a roundabout, 5-lane roundabouts, okay? You come here, nobody knows how to use a roundabout. So I'm in a roundabout, I'm in my truck, and I'm like, please know how to drive. Please no. That's when the conversation happens in your head, and you're like, okay, so people can see my truck. And I love having stuff on my truck because it really keeps things kosher.
It keeps you at bay.
It keeps me at bay. Like, it keeps me from, I admit this, because of this, the first story that I told about the guy in the cell phone and, 15 miles and a speed limit, all that jazz. 80%, and I remember what you're saying about your other story here, Andy. 80% of my, or 85%, I literally was about ready to get out of my truck. And mind you, there's no one else behind, to go over to this guy and talk to him and be like, I get it that you want to have your cell phone. I get it. I get it that you're doing speakerphone. But I'm trying to get my fucking podcast, asshole. But I didn't. And I just drove away.
You could always go the condescension route, just drive up, knock on his window. Hi, I just want to make sure that you were okay.
Oh, yeah.
I want to make sure you're not mentally deficient in some way.
That reminds me of another story. So the other day I was in a parking lot, and I was come into a parking lot, and some jackass like jumps in front of me and then goes across, and there's another lady that's going to go the opposite way, and I drive a little bit, almost got hit, almost got sideswiped, and I'm like, okay. So I back up, right? These are things that Ryan should not do. Backed up, I turned, and I went to follow this guy in Albany, in the Heritage Mall.
Bruh.
It gets worse. It gets worse. I followed the guy all the way over to Applebee's. Okay, so I'm in like the Sears parking lot, and I follow them all the way into Applebee's. Okay, and then I went in the roundabout area, like right before the entrance, and I parked there, like knowing that this customer was going to come in, right? And there's a bunch of people in the parking lot just waiting, and I made damn sure that they could see it. Like I was like, okay. So the couple comes up, and I'm like, sir, I would appreciate it. And I was like, I was surprised what the words came out of my mouth. Okay. I would appreciate it if I'm driving that you don't jump in front of me. Because I got a bunch of stuff in my truck, and I don't want stuff falling out, right? I got my surface cleaner. I got everything, right? Don't want stuff falling out. You know what he did? Oh, this guy was funny. He goes, sorry, it was my wife. He totally threw his wife under the bus. I'm like, okay. Thank you, sir. And I just drove off.
I wonder if after you left, she looked at him and was like, what the fuck, Jerry?
I was hoping that would. I couldn't see facial expressions because obviously everybody had masks on, but it would have been funny just if you see this. The fuck? What? Okay.
Just once I want to see someone's spouse just go, that's it. I'm out of here.
I'm done. Fuck you. I'm gone. I can't do this. Like, you just fucking threw me out of the bus for the last time, Jerry. Like, I'm going back to the car. I'm the motherfucker that has the keys. You're going to walk home.
What a Jerry. What a Carl.
What a Carl.
Unbelievable.
All right. So that leads me into another topic that I wanted to talk about is during the interviews. Now we're going to jump into interview topics. Is when one of the questions that I like to ask is kind of your background information. So with that being said, so the question I usually would ask involves who you were before the military. And that's an important question because a lot of the times how we were raised and how we grew up really makes us who we are now. And I know there's plenty of people out there that I've listened to as far as podcasts, like David Goggins says this all the time, that there's things that make you who you are, and there's so there's a lot of information in who you are before. So that's why I like to ask the question, is because when you get in the military, a lot of your experiences color, or a lot of your history colors your experiences. And so I like to know that, and it helps to figure out who you are now, who you were then, and that kind of stuff. So that's when I like to ask the question. For me, my history involves a lot of colorful. I have a lot of colorful history, I guess, and for me personally. like moving around, and just trying to figure out, who you were as a kid, and parents divorce, all that stuff. So, anyways, what I'm trying to get at is background information is important, and I feel like that really makes the conversation better, because now I can understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Also, it starts you off in this path of where you came from, what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing for anybody to really talk about, but it's so, as a civilian, it looks very transformative being in the military. You get in,
Yeah.
you get broken down, you get rebuilt as something different, and then you come back here, and now you're a civvy again.
Yeah, I gotta say the hardest experience is becoming a civvy again. When you have to deal with the programming of who you became in the military, and then now how that affects you in the civilian sector, and the expectations of who you're supposed to be, you know, which sometimes can be pretty tough. I mean, personally, my experience, was not the most fun experience of what happened in the military and my career and all that. Not making excuses, totally not making excuses, but it's like those kind of things definitely put you on a path that maybe an unexpected path, but those experiences definitely, you have to work through those experiences, and then becoming a civilian is definitely interesting when you have to deal with those experiences while you're trying to live outside of the military.
Sure.
But I find that it's a daily thing. I was thinking about this morning, is sometimes how tough it is to get through a day or to start a day. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and it was talking about productivity. It was talking about really how you get through a day, setting rules for yourself, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, it's amazing how many times there's redirects that happen during a day. You're like, okay, I wanted to do it this way, but then, especially yesterday, where you're like, I just want to reset the whole day. Can I reset it? Like, can I push reset and just like wake up again like a Groundhog's Day? That would be wonderful. When every fucking thing is going wrong, but then the only way that you can make it through the day is you're like, you know what? I literally live sometimes hour by hour or like minute to minute, right? You're at a job site and it's fucked, and you're like, what am I going to do? I can't freak out. Like there's times this week, literally it was just, I am having a bad day, but the client's here and I can't exactly utilize my punching bag. So I'm like,
can't use them as a punching bag either.
I can't use them as a punching bag either. And then it goes back to the conversation of what do you think? Oh yeah, so we were talking about this earlier, Andy, is that what do you think, the perception, what is the audience what is the customer, what are they going to think? And you got to make sure that they're seeing the good, right? That everything is going great, blah, blah, blah. When in reality, sometimes the day is fucked. Like,
yeah. What's that saying? You never get a second chance to make a first impression, but every single day when you're working with customers and clients is a new impression.
Oh yeah. Oh, totally. Like I had to make a new impression yesterday.
Mhm.
I love systems for business, but then when you have a system that fucks up because of you, like literally it was my fuck up and I had to go and correct it, and you have to call the client and all you hear is the client is fucking pissed. And the conversation in your head's like, so I could, and I deal with this. This is one of the things that I deal with. And this is one of the reasons why I go into ghost mode. So from the first last episode talking about ghost mode, dark mode, there are times the reason why I do that is because of conversations that happen in my head. Why does that happen? I mean, I don't know. It just, for me, it's okay. I'm worried about what somebody's going to say, what the conversation is going to happen, especially in business. You're like, I get reviews. Okay. Like, I don't want somebody to make a bad review. So now I'm having these conversations in my head of, okay, so I got to say the right thing. What's going to happen? Slowly working on that to be like, you know what? I'm just going to call the client. So anyways, I call the client up and I'm like, you know what? I apologize greatly for this. So sorry it happened. I'm going to correct it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Mind you, he was great. It was fine. It worked out in the end. And I went over there and, did the work. So that leads into the actual topic that I wanted to talk about today. There is I don't know if you want to call it an ideology or a thought process or something like that. It's called extreme ownership. And it was Jocko, I can't remember his last name. It's Willink or something like that. Willink. Jocko Willink. I was introduced to this concept by my wife years ago. It's basically you just kind of own up to everything, right? Own up to your mistakes, and life will be good, right?
Introduced by your wife, huh?
Yeah.
During a conversation where she was saying, "This is your fuck up."
She's like, "This book, you gotta fucking read." No, not really. No, it was. I was kind of a pussy back then. Like I didn't own up to shit. And she's like, "Oh, you know what? You might want to read this really good book, right?" And so I started reading, and I'm like, "Wow, okay, this is actually a good book." And so that's what I live by, is extreme ownership. And there's a lot of facets to it, a lot of stuff to it. But for me, the main part is, something you screw up on something, or like, something needs to be said, say it, right? I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone's going to be pissed at it, and then you just have to move on, right? But a lot of times in my head, I kind of go to the worst case scenario, and that's not the best way to go. So that's why I don't have conversations with people. But now that I look at it, the extreme ownership aspect is like, I got kind of reminded back again these last couple of days of that concept. And I'm like, you know what? Nope. I'm going to call the person. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to have those difficult conversations, and then everything will be good. Hopefully. But at the end of the day, I think we have to make the right choice. We have to make the choices that we feel comfortable with. And for me, making the right choice of resolving situations like that is the best choice. So, yeah. Another thing that we've already touched upon is the conversations in your head. And I would actually love to be able to know what those conversations are in your head sometimes. And I know, so for those of you that listen to the podcast or watch the videos, thank you for doing that. I really do appreciate that. The only way that I'm able to feel like add more content, and I mean, I'm always looking. I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always, watching videos of anybody on YouTube and all that stuff, trying to find and reading and trying to find topics and things to talk about. But the best topic that could ever be added onto this podcast is you, because your story is why this podcast began. I know I've added other things now, like adding organizations into the mix and talking about them, with Joy and with Carl Monger and in that, and in me. But in reality, the podcast was started because of you. So those of you that are listening, those of you that are family members of veterans that are out there that are having struggles, or they're not struggling anymore and they've struggled before and they have stories that they want to tell, I would absolutely love if you reach out to me. I can only know who you are if you reach out to me. I mean, I'm looking for people consistently to get onto the podcast, but I can't. There's no place unless they've actually said, "Hey, I'm having troubles. I want to talk." Right? I don't know if that's really going to happen very easily. So, anyways, I would love it if you could reach out to me and we can have a conversation and we can get you on the podcast. So, yeah, just email me at combatcitizen.tr@gmail.com. That is the podcast email, and start a conversation. So anyways, I hope that this episode, even though how different it is, I'm trying to try new things. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I really do appreciate you liking and sharing and subscribing, because the subscribe button's all important, right? Or the like button on Facebook. The share button is important as well. Share it as much as you can. Get it out to veterans that can definitely benefit.
You know what else is really important?
Mm-hmm.
Your sponsor, BattleBox.
Oh yeah, totally. BattleBox. It is the great secured
waterproof, by the way.
Waterproof case. Yeah. So this will be on the video. BattleBox.
I had said this previously. I have kind of a smaller, older cell phone.
Yeah.
I can fit my cell phone in that.
Dude, that is pretty badass.
Mm-hmm.
Like
flip phones are coming back, and honestly, that's the perfect reason to get a BattleBox.
Oh yeah, like put it in your back pocket, and then of course if you have a smaller phone, put in there, and then if it drops off a roof like it has with me, you're totally fine.
Yeah, valuables, keys. I want to start selling them to some of my overland friends, because you can put like your registration and your insurance and stuff for your vehicle in there. Let's say you're trying to ford a river in your 2018 4Runner, which, by the way, a friend of mine did try to do that and floated his shit down the river.
Oh, dude.
Oh yeah, but that's a real easy way to keep all of your important docs.
Yeah. That's great.
Keep them sealed, baby.
So this is a very versatile. So I should actually start this uses for BattleBox. Yeah,
we should have a contest.
We're gonna do that.
Yeah.
So for those of you who actually want a BattleBox, want to reach out and purchase a BattleBox, I got plenty of these babies. Like to get them out to you. So it's the website is battlebox.co, not .com. So battlebox.co. Anyways. I'm gonna figure out how to do it. I'm gonna put text on the screen, battlebox.co.
And I'm gonna put together a little something for you, like BattleBox.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. As everybody knows, so it'll episodes come out on Fridays, and the YouTube comes out on Tuesdays. And I'm trying to. So, anyways. Thank you for listening, watching. It's been great. This Combat Citizen Podcast. Have a great day.